Hey, it's a game day. Elliot Harrison, Rod Woodson. One of us is a Hall of Fame defensive back and kick returner. If you're wondering, I decided to quit returning kicks my third year when I was going into my fourth. I'm kidding. Rod Woodson, first ballot Hall of Famer, here to talk about what happened in week one and what we're looking forward to in week two. And I think, Rod, I know it seems like a while back ago, Thursday night, but you saw the way the Chiefs played. They're playing a team that people think is a playoff team. And I don't want to say they were dominant, but they certainly controlled the game. Are they the team to beat right now, do you think, for the Super Bowl? Could we have a repeat winner for the first time and who knows when?
Yeah, since 04 or 05 with the New England Patriots. I think they are. I think, Elliot, I think they're better. And I'll say why. First of all, Mahomes is Mahomes.
Right.
He's playing the game even better. He's the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, highest paid player in NFL history. But you got to think that, you got a healthy Hill, you got Hardman, you got Kelsey, you got Watson, you got this rookie Edwards-Helaire. This kid is just a playmaker. I mean, he just looks great touching the football, either be it through on the ground or through the air. But the key to, I think, them being better is their defense is in the second season under Coach Spags. And Coach Spags had to rechange everything, the way they play, went from a 4-3 to a 3-4. A 3-4 to a 4-3.
Yeah.
And they have players all across the board. Chris Jones and Frank Clark are dramatic players on the edges getting after the quarterback. And I think they have one of the best safeties, one of the top three safeties in the National Football League, and Honey Badger and Tyrone Matthew. So these guys, I think, are better. They're more comfortable in the defense because they understand the system now. Because remember, last year, they didn't hit their mark until about halfway through the year.
Right.
The defense started playing really good football.
That's right.
I think this is a better football team than last year.
I tell you what, you pretty much just covered their whole roster, so you left me with absolutely nothing to add of note.
I'm sorry.
No. Actually, I want to circle back. You mentioned Sammy Watkins. He had a monster week one. He had a huge week one last year. For those of y'all out there playing fantasy, don't take the bait, because next week it's going to be 2 catches for 20 yards, okay? Just trust me on this. Little fantasy advice for you. And then, Rod, on the repeats, you mentioned the Patriots. The Steelers did it twice in the 70s. The Packers did it Super Bowl 1 and 2. The Dolphins did it in Super Bowl 7 and 8. We saw it a lot in the early days of pro football. We don't see it much anymore in the salary cap era, if you put the Patriots aside, right? So I'm just wondering, is the desire still there? You've been there before. You won a Super Bowl in 2000 with the Ravens. You played in the Super Bowl 95 with Pittsburgh. You were in the Super Bowl with Oakland. Is it a mindset that changes the next year where you feel like, hey, we've already kind of, we've reached the mountaintop. I don't have to give that extra little bit. Or do you think these guys at this level are too professional for that?
No, I think they're too professional. Secondly, those big gaudy rings they got too, man, are just, crazy.
They're ridiculous now.
But
they're ridiculous. They're a house.
I think they are. But I think more so it's a negative when you lose, not when you win. So I played in 3. I lost 2. I won 1.
What happened?
And after we won after we won, I'm not going to get into why we lost some other ones.
Kidding.
But after we won with the Ravens, we knew we could repeat if we brought all the same pieces back, and we didn't, and it hurt us. Now with Kansas City, they know they can repeat by bringing all their pieces back and getting everybody healthy again. Because remember, even Thornhill, he didn't play last year at the end of the year, and he's a tremendous safety for them, a young player, but he's a tremendous player. So having all those pieces back, they know if they do everything the right way and play the best that they can play, nobody can outplay them.
We were just talking about repeat Super Bowl winners, Rod, and we don't see a lot of repeat MVP winners either. It's really hard to do. It's happened a few times in history. Peyton Manning, Joe Montana did it. But I think Lamar Jackson can certainly do it if he can throw the football the way we saw last week. And as long as there's such a threat in the running game, those open looks are going to be there all day. Willie Snead went off last week. What do you think about Lamar Jackson being, say, an MVP frontrunner?
He's definitely there. I think the top 3 frontrunners this year already is Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. All 3 quarterbacks, no surprise. And Lamar can be that same guy because remember what he did this past week. Last year, he threw for 36 touchdowns. He rushed for last year, excuse me. He threw for 36 touchdowns and had over 1,000 yards rushing.
That's ridiculous.
Now the key is if one of these quarterbacks, if Aaron Rodgers, obviously I think he's more comfortable in this system from LaFleur. He understands his guys. He knows who his playmakers are, and he found them. He had 4 touchdown passes. If he has 50 touchdown passes, he's the MVP. So whoever gets to that mark, and every quarterback in the history of the MVPs has thrown for 50 or more, they've definitely won that prize. So Lamar, if he stays at the 36 and has over 1,000 yards rushing again, but Aaron Rodgers has 52 passing touchdowns, Aaron Rodgers will be the MVP. But Lamar's definitely in the make. And like I said, those first, Russell, Lamar, and Aaron, those are the front runners this week.
It's interesting with Aaron Rodgers because, there's a certain point in a quarterback's career where they've seen everything. Maybe it's the 10-year mark. I know Tom Landry, the Cowboys' legendary head coach, used to talk about when a quarterback has just gone over 30, he's at that 10-year mark. He knows everything he's seeing out there, right? But his body hasn't broken down to the point, or he hasn't lost the arm strength that he can still do everything he wants to do. And so I think Aaron Rodgers is still in that sweet spot where he's seen everything, but he can also physically do it. That's the problem when you get to a certain age at quarterback. If, what's breaking in front of you, what covers are in, and you just can't make the throw that you used to make. I don't think Rodgers is there yet. I think this is going to be a big year for him. But the difference to me, Rod, is in the past couple of years, Aaron Rodgers had this great TD-INT ratio, right? And we look at him statistically, and his passer rating is wonderful, and we're all, hot dogs and apple pie about it. But it hasn't translated to success on the field. And this year, I think Green Bay wins 11 or 12 games.
No, I'm right there with you. I know how good he's going to be. We know Aaron Jones is going to be a playmaker.
He's
we know
awesome.
They have a nice receiving core. The tight end core, that could be a question mark, but I know they like him quite a bit. To me, the question mark for that team is, what is that defense going to look like?
Right.
How are they going to play on a consistent basis? Because Aaron Rodgers, when he turns 70, if he lives that long, he's going to get out of the bed and throw the ball 65 yards down the field on a razor.
Rod, he's going to live that long. You just go gluten-free, babe. Go gluten-free. You make it to 70. I'm telling you. Speaking of older quarterbacks, it feels weird to say, Cam is older now. This is year 10. Think about it. Year 10. It used to be, when you were playing, a 10-year career was a great career. Now, we still think of Cam kind of as like a young quarterback. And on that note, he ran the ball so many times last week. Can you really have your 10-year veteran quarterback who's been a hoss? Okay, he's not exactly been the most gifted about avoiding contact, right? Can you have him running 10 or 12 times a game to help your team win? I don't see it. I don't see it.
Not to do it for 16 straight weeks. You have to understand who they are. And I think when you understand the philosophy of the New England Patriots and what they try to do on a week in, week out basis, his strength is how big he is. And he can run with the football. He can make plays, and he can make unscheduled plays with his feet. Now, some of those runs were scheduled. They were called runs. They had quarterback draws, quarterback sweeps. You got quarterback powers because they know. But my question is, you got to remember, Cam's gotten beat up the last couple of years.
Oh, I remember.
He's healthy right now. But if he keeps getting hit, what effect does that have on their game plans? Because, listen, 15 carries in a game for a quarterback, that's a lot.
It's ridiculous.
And, 15 for 19 in the passing attack. My question, he was playing Miami. So you can run the quarterback like that when you're ahead. But, so could I say this week, they're going to play the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to get behind. Well, you can't run him 15 times.
That's right.
Now, maybe in short yardage situations, but I just think, I respect what Bill has done with the New England Patriots and how they game plan week in and week out and how it changes. But Tom Brady's different than Cam. And I think you're going to have to look at that a little bit different. I just don't think he can run 15 times in a game throughout 16 weeks in the National Football League because he's going to get banged up and beat up. And he's, like you said, he's been in the league for 10 years. The body doesn't heal as fast.
No.
Year 10.
No, and after the Panthers lost Jonathan Stewart and Mike Tolbert, he kind of became their thumper, And when your quarterback is your thumper inside the 5, that's not a recipe for having him start 16 games. But, another guy what's that?
That's a great point.
Well, I try to make them every once in a while. When my hair looks as bad as it is, by the way, pandemic hair, everybody, this is 6 months without a haircut. I'm going for the Jeff Bridges look. Let me know how I'm doing. Another guy that's run a lot, speaking of the Patriots, Russell Wilson's playing the Patriots, and Bill Belichick mentioned, I had the quote right here, said, I don't really see anyone that's better than this player. I agree. I did an article last year where I ranked all the quarterbacks, the best of all time. And I had Russell Wilson already in the top 20. And I got some grief about it. I think Russell Wilson were to retire right now, Rod, I think he's a Hall of Fame player. I really do. I know early in his career, he could walk out there and say, hey, we score 17 points, we win, because Seattle's defense was suffocating. But starting in like 2015, when Marshawn Lynch got hurt and then he retired and the defense started losing pieces, these aren't the same Seahawks anymore. And now he's being leaned on. Rod, he went 31 of 35 last week. Would it be fair to say that he could be the best player in the NFL?
Well, he's the most efficient quarterback in the NFL. He does take care of the football. He only had 2 years in his career that he threw double-digit interceptions. I think that was like 16 and 17. The one thing I do respect, and understand, they play in Seattle.
Right.
If he was in New York or he was in LA,
forget about it.
Oh, this dude would be a mega star.
He'd be making Beyonce money.
Absolutely. So I know that he's a great player. I think you understand that. I think the vast majority of the fans don't get it because he doesn't put up gaudy numbers now either. He throws for 30-some touchdowns a year. He doesn't throw the ball away. He'll have 3,500 to 4,200 yards passing. He needs one breakout year. He needs 1 year where he throws for over 5,000 and he throws 45 touchdowns. If he does that one time, everybody's going to be like, oh, this guy is legit. But I think we know how good he is because we're football guys and we see the game. We know he's valuable to a team because he doesn't turn the ball over.
Right.
And he is their leader. You go back last week, they only gave Carson the ball 6 times. It was him throwing that football down to that mega guy, Metcalf, who is, that's a different animal in himself. But, Russell Wilson is one of those players that I think he could play to any generation. I think he could have played in the 70s. He could have played in the 80s. He could have played in the 90s. And obviously he's playing now. So when you have the generational players, those are the type of guys you start talking about belong in the Hall of Fame.
He reminds me a lot of Fran Tarkenton. Fran Tarkenton, Hall of Fame quarterback for the Vikings in the 70s, could run around, make plays. Fran Tarkenton won a heck of a lot of games, too. And when the Vikings defense got older, they still made it back to the Super Bowl because of Fran, really good player. I want to hit on 2 topics real quick. One of them related to what we're talking about, because I think when you were talking about Russell Wilson being a generational player, and I think one of the things that he does so well is knowing when to throw the ball away, knowing when to step out of bounds, and then knowing when to go for it. Knowing when to lunge and try to get that. He protects his body, Rod, over and over and over. He's smart about it. He doesn't throw the ball late and high, either. He'll just throw it, chuck it out of bounds, which those allow your offense to live to see another set of downs. And I think with Kyler Murray, I was watching him run against San Francisco, and he does such a good job already as a second-year player of protecting his body. I haven't seen Kyler Murray get hammered yet. And he just seems to have that instinct that Russ has of, okay, I got what I can get, boom. And then, if it's a late game situation and you gotta hit it, he can do that. I just think that's a really hard thing to teach, and I'm really impressed with him so far. I didn't know if you got to see any of him against the 49ers this week. I
watched most of that game, and when he ran his touchdown run in, I thought he was going to get tackled on 10-yard line.
That guy had the angle. He had the angle.
The guy had the angle. He was running right in there, and he just bursted to the right. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So, it's his natural ability to feel the game. We know the game has changed. We know the position of the quarterback position, the value of running with the football by the quarterback himself has changed the game. All those scrambling quarterbacks, the Randall Cunninghams and the Fran Tarkins, those guys, Sammy Balls, those guys were so far.
Did you just say Sammy Ball?
Sammy Ball, yeah. Bro.
So, Rob, before we bail here, I want to hit you on one little thing about the Cowboys. Sunday night, they played. You saw Mike McCarthy went for it on fourth down, didn't go for the field goal. They had that offensive pass interference late in the game. I want to ask you if you're buying or selling the Cowboys, and I just changed my mind. I got to know, former defensive back, did Jalen Ramsey do the Vlade flop there, or was that a real penalty? But by the rule book, I know his arm was extended. Break it down for me.
By the rules, you make that call, and I know a lot of people say they don't want to see that call in that time of the game, but that's unfair because if you do it in the first quarter, you want that call and you want to see that flag come out. So the same thing has to be said for that. Now, I would say for Jalen Ramsey, he can't get on a low hip, and then he doesn't have to worry about a receiver pushing off.
What does that mean? Tell me what that
low hip. So if the receivers are running like they're running here. Mm-hmm. Here's the receiver. Jalen's back here on the low hip. He should be up here on the upfield shoulder, and then he's not getting beat. And then he can either knock it down, intercept it, but then, more than likely, Dak won't even throw the ball. But the question I have more than anything is Kellen Moore, he has to understand who his playmakers are. And why not why don't you have, you think about the third down play, with CeeDee Lamb, right? Why isn't their best receiver running that route? So I think Kellen's had to learn along with, I know I got off the topic, but Jalen, right. So Kellen has to learn how to make his calls and put his playmakers in position. And Jalen, obviously they made the call, but he puts himself in a better position so they don't have to make that call.
No, I agree. I actually know what the low hip is. But when you start using that super deep football speak, I don't know if you lose anybody. And it's kind of like when I talk to my friends about Star Trek and I just get going and they just stare at me. So I didn't want that to happen here. But I think the Cowboys, Rod, I think they're a 9-10 win team. I think it's the same old story. They might make the playoffs. Maybe they win a wild card game. I'm not as sold on this team as everybody else is, but am I off? Do you see them being better than that, or do you think that's about right for them?
No, I think, what are they going to be? We know they're going to feed Zeke. They do have a nice offense. I think Dak, I think he's underrated. I think he's played well for that football team. To me, it comes on their defense. I don't know what they're going to be on defense. You got a lot of injuries. You got a lot of guys moved over. You got a new defense coordinator, Mike Nolan. He sees the game differently than previous years.
I like him, though. I like him.
I love Mike. But my question is, anytime you change a system, it takes players a while to get comfortable in that side of that system.
Especially with no preseason, right?
Especially for the younger players. So, I think you're right. I think, adding that seventh playoff team that, the NFL's done this year, you're going to see a lot of, 500 or below 500 teams make it in.
Crazy. Just crazy. It's too bad they couldn't do that when you were playing. You might have picked up an extra ring, right? That would have been awesome.
Got some more playoff games under my belt.
Oh, you guys played in a ton. All right, hey, that's the game day for this week. And by the way, are you in?